I think in the interest of time, we're going to go ahead and kick things off. Good evening. Thanks again for joining us. My name is Brian Whitmore. As we get going here, just ensure that your microphone is muted and your camera is active if you're in a place to do so that's appropriate for that as we get started. Again, my name is Brian Whitmore. Thanks for joining us for our Sophomore Finance Internship Program kind of information session overview. We have some great folks in attendance this evening that are going to talk through timeline, process, steps to help get you prepared for this program that we're going to have going forward. Couple quick housekeeping notes. If you have questions, please post them in the chat. Brian Saramba has graciously volunteered to make sure we monitor those, and we'll get to those questions, so we appreciate it. Keep your microphone muted, if you would, please, just so that we keep the background noise and everything down as we go. This should be about an hour, but we really want to get through the housekeeping things here quick, and our presentation, so we can get to Travis and Lauren and get some Q&A going, because I think that's the most important thing. So with that, if my colleagues don't have anything else to add, we'll just jump right into the program here. Excellent. So let us know if you can't see the slides as they are as we're screen sharing. This is just the agenda item we're going to have for the evening: purpose, program, application, tools and resources, and then that panel style Q&A. This is really important because we feel as though this is a great opportunity for the individuals who will be applying for this program. And this is really a session for you to ask those questions, to get comfortable. You have a lot of great minds in the room here. So please use the tools that we're giving you this evening to engage and to learn about the program. There is no such thing as a silly question. We really want to know what's on your mind. We really have taken some time to really think about some of the things that might be offered this evening. So please ask those questions, be involved, be active, and we certainly will be around afterwards for virtually, I might say, for some emailing and questions in that. All right. So that's that. We're going to jump into some introductions. I'll start with myself. We'll just go down the line as you see us. So again, my name is Brian Whitmore. I'm a finance career coach here with Finance and Now Real Estate for the WSB. I really am looking forward to tonight's presentation.
Great. Good evening, everyone. I'm Jamie Macias. It's great to see so many familiar faces in the audience. I'm actually the finance program director as of September. So I've actually been working in the School of Business for the last 15 years, supporting a lot of our finance initiatives, and was able to help jumpstart the Sophomore Finance Internship Program. So I'm really excited to share some context about it and a little bit more about how it's going to work in terms of our process and timeline. And I'm happy to be a resource for questions too. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. My name is Brian Zaramba. I'm an Assistant Director of Employer Engagement for the undergraduate program at the School of Business. My job is, like Brian, works directly with students to help coach them to be successful. I work directly with employers in the financial services industry, among others, to help them be successful in recruiting you.
All right, Travis and Lauren.
All right, I can go ahead. I wasn't sure. So I'm Travis. I'm a senior. I'm also a career peer advisor. So I help out at the business school with resumes, cover letters, things like that. And then I'm a prior program participant. So I interned at Eminence Capital after my sophomore year.
And Lauren? All right. Lauren may be having some difficulties connecting in, so we will definitely make sure that she's able to introduce herself before we proceed through the panel discussion later on.
Oh,
all right.
No.
Hi, Lauren. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Oh, you can hear. Okay, cool. Sorry about that. Amazing. So hi, everyone. I'm Lauren Schneiderman. I'm a senior here, double majoring in finance and real estate. I am also a PPF facilitator this semester, and I interned at Shellback Capital my sophomore summer. Excited for the presentation.
Perfect. So as Brian mentioned, we're just going to spend a little bit of time setting up some context for all of you, but the stars of the show are really Travis and Lauren sharing their experiences with you, and again, answering questions that you all have as well. But let's talk a little bit more about what this program is. So it was actually created 5 years ago in 2015 by Ricky Sandler, who's a UW alum. He's also the CEO and founder of Eminence Capital in New York, which is a hedge fund. and a small group of passionate UW alumni who are also senior alumni within, again, high finance types of firms. So hedge funds, private equity firms, etc. And their goal and their mission with this program was really to enhance students' learning in the classroom by providing some applied experiences for students to come to New York, Boston, or Chicago, and to learn about the investment process working for, again, a hedge fund, a private equity firm, a very unique type of experience that a lot of times sophomores are not able to get because these types of firms don't typically recruit undergrads in the traditional sense. But the goal was really just a learning experience. As this, Ricky took the first interns in at Eminence in 2015, had a great experience with the two students. They came back raving about it. And so, of course, naturally, Ricky said, let's do this. Let's scale it. Let's replicate it in a number of other firms. And students said, how can I get an internship like that? And so, here we have this beautiful program now that's grown. The internship is actually a paid experience, which again is a very unique thing, especially post sophomore year. And again, you'd be learning from these sort of mentors, these alumni that work for these firms. I would say some of the basic benefits of participating are you will absolutely grow your network of finance alumni and professionals that work in the industry. So Badgers are very loyal by nature. I'm sure Travis and Lauren will speak to that. But in this program in particular, it's really important that it can expand that network. You also will get to apply your learning around finance knowledge, so skills development. You'll learn a little bit more about the research process, investment philosophies. You'll get to do a little bit of potentially modeling depending on where you work. But you're really part of the process, adding value to the firm, but learning as well. So again, some great lessons to be learned in this experience. The program now has grown from just that one firm to begin with in 2015 to over 15 partners. And represented here on the screen are some of the partners that have joined us. As you'll see, it's grown well beyond just hedge funds and private equity firms now to include venture capital. We have a fintech firm, we have wealth management organizations, and some real estate finance experiences too. So all of these firms are a little bit different. You will find as you go through the process that they have very, I would say, like very lean websites. There's not a ton of information about them. And so once we get into tips a little bit later, we'll talk to you about strategies to learn more. So as you look through this list, you may or may not have heard of these firms, but again, they all provide an equally valuable learning experience for students. And I think, again, this program is just a really great way to kind of bolster your skills and your learning. Another benefit I would say is that this program has really jump-started students post-junior year internship success. So to date, from the last 5 years, we've had 50 interns participate in this program, again, working at a number of different firms and spread across primarily in New York. We have one partner in Boston, and then we've had a couple in Chicago that kind of rotate in and out. And our goal is to really expand this to be even larger and into new markets. But I would say that probably the biggest takeaway for all of you is that 100% of our sophomore finance internship program interns from the past have placed into top sell side and buy side post junior year internships. So that 100%. And if we ask the students, a lot of them will say that they landed an internship in their top 5 employers of interest too, because this program is so unique. It provides such a unique experience that going into that recruitment process, it just gives you a competitive edge. So you'll see at the bottom some of the firms that students have placed into, again, over these past 5 years. And creating this pipeline has obviously helped because, as these firms see students come out of this program, they're going to be looking to future interns to also fill those shoes. So that's hopefully great news to all of you who may be interested in working for these firms down the road. So what is the process? What is the timeline? Let me kind of talk you through how this is going to work. And I will caveat it by saying that this is our plan. And, with hedge funds, with private equity firms, it's year end and it's also a COVID situation. And so unfortunately, we have not had a normal situation. What I mean by that is at this time, from that list I showed you, we have about 6 employers who have committed to participate for sure at this time. There will be another handful of firms that likely will commit after the new year, but they're just waiting to see what happens with the pandemic because they want to make sure if they participate, they can offer you a quality experience, ideally in person. But for this first wave of those 6 firms, what will happen is the application, as you all know, is open now. It opened December 1st, and it will remain open through January 5th. There is a posting in Handshake called Sophomore Buy-Side Internship Opportunities. So what you'll do is you'll submit your resume, a cover letter that answers 2 questions, and this prompt is in the actual posting. But why are you interested, and what makes you a viable, strong candidate for the program? And then you'll also include your unofficial transcript in that application. From January 6th through the 15th, the firms will receive those application materials from all the candidates. Again, you only apply one time, but we send that set of application materials to all of the firms participating. So just keep that in mind as you draft your cover letter, that 6 firms at minimum are going to read that same one letter. So again, make sure you're addressing it a little bit neutrally. The firms will then review candidates. They will then determine who they wish to interview. In some cases, they will reach out to you directly to schedule a time. And in other cases, they will work through Brian Zaramba and our career team to navigate those internship schedules in Handshake. So it really just depends on how the firm wants to approach that work. And then what happens at the end is after the interviews have been conducted through the end of January, we will ask all students who interviewed to rank order the firms they talked to in order of preference. We'll do the same thing with those firms and ask them for the candidates they talked to, who were your top students. And we do what's called a matching process. And the reason we do that is because we want to make sure that we don't get into a situation where 5 students receive 5 offers and there's this kind of market-based negotiation happening. Again, this is a learning experience, so we want to provide as much opportunity for students, and that's been the most productive way for us to get that done. So after the matching process happens, then I will actually reach out to students and notify you of your match, and the firm will then follow up in a traditional fashion with an offer letter, the details of your internship, pay, all of those details, ideally by March. So as you'll see, this process runs from December 1st all the way through February 1st. Now, as I mentioned, these are very busy people. So as is somewhat common, and I'm sure Travis and Lauren can attest to this too, we set this timeline as the goal. Sometimes things get a little bit delayed. So again, we appreciate your flexibility. We will communicate with all of our applicants as closely as we can to make sure that you're familiar with what's going on. As I mentioned, we have a handful of firms who have told us, we're not quite ready to commit just because of COVID, but if signs are pointing in a favorable direction after the new year, it's very possible that those firms will agree to participate. And at that time, we will either send them the application materials from this round, or we will post another round that will happen in the spring semester. So again, stay tuned for more information about that. At this time also, I will mention that all of these internships are planning to take place in person. So in New York, in Boston, in Chicago. But again, depending upon what is safe to do, we may end up having to transition the program to an all virtual experience like we did in summer 2020. But again, that is not the intention and not the hope this time. Housing, if you are lucky to be offered a position and you need to move, housing is recommended by the firms, but students are responsible for securing that. But again, we provide recommendations and websites that you can go to where a number of other interns are also looking for housing, typically on college campuses. So like the NYU dorms are very popular for people going to New York. Okay. And as I mentioned, each offer is very similar in nature, but the pay kind of, it depends on the firm type. So you might get paid one thing at working for a hedge fund. The pay with wealth management might be a little bit different. So again, we want to make sure that each firm has that flexibility to make sure that they set out the offer details with you directly. So I know that's a lot of information. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to pose those as we continue on. And again, Travis and Lauren will share more about their experiences as we continue through. But for now, I'll turn it over to Brian Whitmore to talk more about advising resources available to you.
Excellent. Thank you, Jamie, for that. We're just going to go through in the next couple of slides some questions about or some ideas for advising tools and support that we've set up for all of you as potential applicants to this program. I know it can seem a little daunting about how to prepare, what to prepare for, and how we can help you do that. So to start, what we've done is we've worked with our career peers within the finance department to ensure that you have advising available to you from the 8th to the 23rd of December via Starfish. So what that will look like, there are 3 advisors, including myself, so 4 in total, that you can go on Starfish and actually book an appointment with, and that will be Travis, Bradford, Raj, and Ben. You can see, and you'll see all of their names as advisors for this program in Starfish. If you have any questions, just reach out to us. We'll help you do that. What they're going to assist you with is, as you see it in front of you, resume creation, how to pitch a stock, interview prep, and resources and tools to be able to have the knowledge that's going to be required of you for these interviews in terms of what to learn and market concepts and that. The really great thing about the peers that we've selected for this is that in Travis's case, he has experience in this program, and the other 2 gentlemen that are also advising you as students also have a great depth of knowledge as it pertains to finance within interviewing, prep for market concepts, stocks, and whatnot. So I would really, really highly suggest that you take advantage of this resource. Please reach out to them. Please make appointments if they are available, which they have blocked their schedule, so they will show their availability only in Starfish. Book appointments with them and ask those questions and use this resource and tool to your advantage, because quite often we find that the more prepared you can be about this, the better. I also will include in the chat here right now, if it works. Let's see if it goes. So what I just put in the chat were links to information about a cover letter resource, a resume resource, and a 1-page document about things to consider in terms of market concept, ideas, and things to prepare for. I highly suggest you take those in conjunction with those advising tools, take them with you to the advising appointment, take them with you, and make sure that you're prepared to be able to speak on them, right? And Travis and Lauren, as we're continuing in this, please feel free to jump in with any input that you might have regarding these tools and things to think about. Again, the other thing I would really want to stress here in preparation is that you're going to see these lists, as Jamie alluded to, about who's involved. I would caution you at this point that a lot of you, you're going to do what we've asked of you as students, is to try to reach out. In this case, I think it would be best that if you were to instead of reaching out to, the head-ups at these particular firms or these funds, instead look at who you can reach out to that might be an analyst within the category of, or reach out to someone that might be on, now I don't want to say the fringe, but it's not involved directly with the participants of the program, because as Jamie said, they're quite busy and this time is of the essence and a factor in that. All right. So please continue to work on that and do that as we go forward. Let's see here. Thank you. Think about a lot of this too, as we're talking about preparing for this. A lot of people are going to put the emphasis on, well, how much of the market do I need to know? What do I need to know about, what's happened in the market, or how knowledgeable do I need to be? Great questions to ask our advisors. Great questions in the Q&A panel we're going to have coming up. But also remember the part about this, which is, I think, the most important, which is you. What are your skills? What are your strengths? What are your values? Be able to answer those questions as it relates to finance and what you want to do, and how you be able to best convey that intentionally, concisely in an interview or in a resume or within that cover letter, so that comes out and goes forward. And that's really, really important, right? Use the publications and tools for research to your advantage. Be knowledgeable of the market. Don't be an expert in the market, because who can really do that, right? But be knowledgeable about the market and use the tools that we have, Wall Street Journal, Wall Street Oasis, mergers and acquisitions, and all of those things, and use those documents that we've prepared in the 1-page documents about concepts from stock pitch, resume, interview, and all of those things. All right. I think that's very, very important. And as we go forward in the Q&A session, it's going to be a great time to get that perspective from a student, the students that have done this. And that's what's really important. And I think that's what's, and that's what's really, important here as we go forward. So with that, because I want to get to the Q&A session, if anyone has any questions about tools and advising, please use the chat to do so. But I want to turn it over to Travis and to Lauren, because they're the stars of this show. And I think there's a lot of people that have a lot of burning questions and desires to ask them. So we're going to put them on the spot. Good luck in trying to stump them. I don't think you'll be successful, but please ask those questions. Use the chat for that. We have some things we can ask too. But as we go forward, any questions or anything as what from Jamie has discussed or what I've discussed that we can elaborate on before we get into this Q&A? C&E. Okay. So with that, Travis and Lauren, starting with Lauren first, if you just quickly, your name, firm that you interned with, and then after that, would you both go kind of, Lauren, if you would start after that, just talk about your experience, your rounded experience, how it got started, things that you noted in terms of things to take away and that sort of thing, and then we'll go to Travis and then we'll jump into questions. Sound good? Excellent. All right.
Thanks, Brian. Hi, everyone. That was an awesome presentation. So I interned my sophomore summer. I worked at Shellback Capital, which is the firm in Boston, and it was probably one of the best summers ever. I could probably talk about this for years and forever. So I worked under a UW alumni named Doug Gordon, and he focuses on consumer and retail investing. So I mainly focused in that space and was covering companies that you see every single day. So a lot of restaurants, a lot of retail. So like Lulu, Yeti, Revolve, and then also some e-commerce as well. So like Etsy, Farfetch, The RealReal, different companies. And it was the absolute most amazing experience. It was amazing just coming into that experience, 20 years old, moving to Boston by myself, able to ask all of the like burning questions. I would be able to go with the analyst, Derek, who was the analyst is the analyst when I was there, and also Doug, to meetings and with companies, with research analysts, and just pick their brains after and be like, Doug, you said this. Can you talk about why you did that? They were talking about, one of the CEOs of this company was talking about this. Can you explain what it means? And really just pick their brains about different valuation concepts and really what we were doing at the firm, being able to kind of build into everything and figure out why they did that, and how, when I tackle my own valuations and like analyzing companies, how I came to value in that sense. And two of the big things that I mainly did over the summer was I provided the company with an initiation on Yeti, and which had recently IPO'd in the September of the past year. So we met with the company at some point, and I provided an initiation on the company and my thoughts on the company, as well as kind of did a comparison of all these new e-commerce retail tech companies to more established companies in the retail e-commerce space. It was the best time ever. I don't want to take up too much time and want to make sure you have time for your questions. So I'll give it to Travis to kind of talk about his experience.
Yeah, sounds good. So I'm Travis. I interned at Eminence Capital after my sophomore year. And basically what Eminence is it's a long, short, mostly equities fund that focuses on bottoms-up fundamentals investing and has a focus on quality value. So like to kind of break that down, so bottoms-up fundamentals means that you're looking at the company's financial statements and trying to make judgments as to what the company is going to be doing in the longer term. If you come out with a positive view on that, you can go long, which means that you're buying the stock. And then if you're not, you go short, which means that you're betting that the stock is going to go down. And then quality value, basically looking for businesses that are of high quality, generally with some really strong competitive moat, that are trading at valuations that don't fully sort of, appreciate the earnings potential that moat is going to provide for the company. And so as you're doing this, you're doing like a lot of work to try to gain a differentiated view on the company because of the efficient markets hypothesis, that's kind of what you have to do when you're at a hedge fund in order to generate good returns over the long term. So some things that we would do would be like product and pricing comparisons, using like online. We might get on the phone with industry experts or old management teams to see what they were thinking about the industry trends. And then just looking at other research, a lot of it you can frankly find online, kind of trying to gain, like I said, that differentiated view. Hopefully that's a good stuff.
Good stuff. Thank you both. So we can open it up for questions. If you want to use the chat, great. If you want to unmute your microphone and ask that question, go for it. We'll try to keep the funnel going of questions if we have multiple people speaking up, but we can open that up for questions now if you can start asking those if you have them.
Hi, Travis and Lauren. I'm Josh. I have a question regarding how did you both approach the recruiting process during for the buy-side internship?
Cool. Thanks, Josh. I would say this is in general with my sophomore year recruiting process, but I just applied everywhere. And kind of when it came to the buy sides, I really wanted any of these experiences kind of going on what was said earlier. UW alumni it's the amount that they've done to help us is so amazing and support and I just wanted any sort of experience. I wasn't picky. I was open to going anywhere, doing anything. And so when I applied to the hedge funds, which I applied in a couple of rounds, and I think I interviewed with Shellback in March of that year, but that was just what the year was, and the timeline. Everything changes every year with this program. Really, kind of just came in with a practice like my story, kind of behavioral strengths, why I wanted to be in high finance, and what I thought I could get out of this experience. Kind of having a solid knowledge of what's going on in the markets, being able to carry a conversation and kind of tell that I was current. And then also just kind of looked for ways to connect with the people. I think when you're going to a small firm, it's really important to understand that, yes, you need to have some idea of finance and what the firm is doing and be researched on that. But it's also important just to be personable and tell your story, what you're interested in. And I think that was what helped me land an experience in the sophomore buy-side program.
Yeah, so I'd pretty much say everything that Lauren did, but maybe to like get into the strategies that I used like for each question more specifically. So like you'll get behavioral questions. So these are generally like, tell me about a time you did X, Y, or Z. And for those, like it's generally good to have like 3 to 5 stories that you're going to fall back on. So for example, like I was a canoeing guide after my freshman year, and there were a bunch of things that happened when I was a canoeing guide that I would bring up in my interviews to answer those types of questions. So like kind of spend some time like thinking about what sort of situations might be good for you to kind of bring up. Then there's sort of like the current events based questions. So for those, I think like it's helpful if everyone is kind of reading the Wall Street Journal to kind of have an idea as to what's going on in the world at sort of a high level. But then spend some time like researching and taking a deeper dive into like 1 or 2 events so that if you get asked like, tell me about something that's going on in the market, you kind of have like that broader, or I guess that more in-depth like knowledge about the one sort of topic. And then I guess like you hear people talk about technical questions. Like to be honest, most of these interviews aren't very technical. I think I only got asked like 1 or 2 very basic accounting questions in one of my interviews. So like you should go back and review that if you take in accounting especially, but in general, that's not the emphasis here. And so in general, like I think it's most important to really focus on kind of like Lauren was saying, like what are you going to get out of the program? Like why are you a good candidate? And sort of making sure that you're really ready to go for those behavioral questions.
I have a question if nobody's going. Yeah. So I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which is a tad bit different from New York City and Boston. And I was wondering if there was a good adjustment moving to the big city and it was overwhelming. How you kind of overcame that.
Sam, we had a little bit of problems hearing you there, but it sounded like you're talking a little bit about adjustments in terms of how it was from where living now to New York. Is that right? Or can you retype your question in the chat so we can address it? Because we want to make sure we do that.
Yeah, it looks like you just did. So yeah, like for me, I mean, this was one of the benefits I think for me to try the program. I grew up in the Milwaukee area as well, one of the suburbs, and like I wasn't sure if the big city was going to be a good fit for me either. And so like as I was like kind of going through the recruiting process, I thought it would be really cool to have the chance to intern in New York for my sophomore year, because then I knew, you know, if I didn't like the big city, or maybe I wanted to recruit in Chicago and be a little closer to home, then that opportunity was still open to me. But with that being said, like if you want to go out to New York after you graduate, there's a lot of benefits of being out there after your sophomore year. Or I guess not even New York. I would say like there's a lot of benefits of being in your end sort of goal city for your sophomore summer. whether that's Chicago or Boston or New York, because then you can go out and build your network within that city and meet with people in person rather than over the phone. And you'll find that I think you just make a lot more connections that way. So in the end, it was a really good chance or really good opportunity for me to be able to move out to New York after so.
Yeah, and I would agree from a networking standpoint that it was a great way to move to Boston and meet people. Also for me, I didn't know anybody moving out to Boston, and it was a big push out of my comfort zone. I think I'm from the Chicagoland area, so going to school in Wisconsin was not that freaky for me, but kind of picking up my bags and going to being like the 7th person at a firm alone in Boston was such an amazing experience for me, push out of my comfort zone. And I loved living in Boston. I looked there for colleges and ended up wanting to be closer from home, but it was the best time ever. It was definitely overwhelming, but it was a really cool way to learn a lot about independence and stuff. And also with the networking opportunities, I was able to meet people, both students and professionals in the area in my free time in Boston as well. So it was awesome.
Yes, it looks like we had another question that came through the chat just asking about, are the involved firms interested in economics majors, even though they aren't in the business school? It's a great question, Aiden. For this program, just because it is such a small program in terms of number of spots, the firms, as we were setting up criteria, did say that they are looking for a business school student. The reason for that is because these firms are really looking for students that have some basic level of accounting that they've already taken, and ideally some basic knowledge of finance. And so I think that was just a way to kind of, capture students that likely have some of those courses taken. So, if you're a double major with finance and economics, for example, I feel like you're probably in a really great situation having understanding, macro level concepts and some of the finance or equation based stuff that you're learning in school. So, at this time, this program is for business school students. But again, the value of an economics major with business would be very highly sought after by these firms.
Hi, yeah. First, I have a question, but I just want to thank the Lauren and Travis for you guys coming out and talking to us thus far. It's been really informative. I guess my question was, could you talk about your day-to-day activities as far as when you eventually made it to the internship experience and like how that was in terms of timing and what you were doing while you were there? Thank you.
All right, I'll go first for this one. It's always awkward figuring that out in person, but I feel like it's even more awkward online. But yes, basically the day to day, it was like everything that the analysts were doing, we were doing right along with them. So, like I said before, like a lot of what the analysts would be like calling industry experts and getting their opinions on sort of what's going on in the industry, important trends. And so we would be like listening in and taking notes on all of those calls. Eminence did also have a modeling component. So when the analysts were going through and building out their models, we were doing the same thing. Obviously, we were a lot slower than them, so they would do it and then do something else, and we'd catch up with them. But and then of course, there's also just like the basic reading and research that goes along with the idea. So reading their financial statements, reading recent earnings calls transcripts. And then I guess like bringing it all together, there were pitch meetings. So a couple times a week, Eminence broke it out by sector. So they'd have like a TMT meeting and a healthcare meeting, and where you get the actual pitches, so the results, right, of all of that research that you've been doing, which were always really interesting. And then I think like probably one of my favorite things that we had throughout the summer was every Friday we'd have just an hour-long meeting with both of the analysts and the PM that we were working with, and we could just ask them any question that we had off the top of our heads. So this was really good if I had questions like throughout the week, but then also just like sort of higher level questions about investing or markets or finance. They were really good. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, and for me, I would get to Shellback the office in Boston like pretty early in the morning. The team at Shellback wanted a morning update on kind of any changes that were happening in the retailing space. So I would usually have that in like people's hands before 7:30, 7:45 in the morning. But from there, it was really, like Travis said, doing what the analyst was doing. So like kind of keeping track of everything that of the companies that we were covering, what was going on with them. If we had meetings, prepping for those meetings and kind of figuring out what we were going to ask the research analyst questions about, or the particular company that we were meeting with. I also had like side projects that I was working on specifically for the firm. Really, but I would say overall, it was a lot of time to kind of take anything that the analyst was doing and sit with it, really figure out how to do it. I think something really cool about Shellback and the buy side internship program was it was completely a learning experience, and that the people at Shellback really wanted me to actually sit there and learn it and not freak myself out about execution and getting it right on the first time. They were like, we want you to mess up a million times here before you go to your sell side internship, your buy side internship, your junior summer, your full-time job. And then at that point, know what you're doing. But here, really take time to absorb everything, figure it out, and then learn how to perform it in the right way. So a lot of learning, a lot of kind of just absorbing everything around me.
I had a little question that kind of went off that. This is more directed kind of towards Travis. But Lauren talked about how they were like really encouraging and they like wanted you to learn it, and like mistakes were good because it meant you were learning. But did you feel that you were prepared for like the tasks given by these firms, and like what they wanted you to do, and like how could we prepare so that we feel more ready?
Yeah, I think that's actually like a really good question. I think like there are a lot of things you can do to kind of get ready. I think like taking accounting ahead of time is almost sort of a must. Like you have to understand what the financial statements, you know, what the numbers, like what all of it means. Um, I think for the most part though, like they do a really good job of like kind of bringing you up to speed, I guess. Like even with modeling, like I had done a Wall Street prep financial modeling course, which was really good. The business school offers a very similar one now that's also really good. But like when I got out there, they didn't really expect that I had that experience. They actually brought someone in to teach us how to do it, and so I got to learn it like all over again. So in general, like I think you know it's helpful to come in with knowledge. I think it's like they look for it in the interviews. They look that you can talk in a sophisticated, like a knowledgeable way about the markets. But they don't necessarily really expect that once you hit the desk, you're going to be like by any means an expert. They really focus on
Yeah, Ashley, I see your question in the chat. I think something that's cool about, I think something that's different working on the buy side than the sell side is I usually was done, I'd say the latest 6:37. So usually I would walk home every day, and I loved like being in Boston. So I actually had a friend that I met that lived across, not lived, she worked for Wellington across like in the financial district. So we'd walk back together almost every day and kind of go to the gym, be outside. I lived right by Fenway, so sometimes I'd try to go to a baseball game. But yeah, exploring Boston, meeting people, relaxing, and just kind of being outside.
Yeah, I mean, I think for my summer, like my hours were pretty much like they were like 8 to 8, so I'd get off kind of like after dinner, and I'd normally go right to the gym. Then after that, there like really isn't a whole lot of time left if you're getting up early to get ready for work again. But most of the time during the week, I'd be like prepping for recruiting the following summer because those timelines kind of land like where you're doing your sophomore internship while you're getting ready for your junior year recruiting process. So I was working on that, but there was plenty of time to do things on the weekends. Like I never worked on the weekends. There were a lot of times just go and explore the city. Obviously, New York there's a lot that's going on, so it was never boring. I guess.
I would just
Sorry,
say that with this, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, no, you can go. Sorry.
Yeah, just kind of some with like free time in general. Definitely put in all the opportunity within these experiences to learn, but also on the weekends or if you have free time at night, take time to explore and network within the city. If you still have to go through recruiting during the summer, do that, but also just enjoy the time, I think is everything I would say. Like it's such a unique experience.
I had a little question again related to the kind of the social aspect and also like the firm in general. But are there like other interns, like not just from possibly UW, but like other schools or possibly like already college graduates like you're working with that you get to like meet and interact with and like learn with as well, or is it just like you guys?
So I think Eminence's program, the only program they run every year is just for UW sophomores. And I think the reason for that is like the entire investment team is only 15 people, so it's a little bit different than like a bank type of scenario where they're looking to hire a new analyst class every year. It's more of a like as needed type of basis. But I mean, at least in New York, like at the very least, you'll have the other program participants. It's a little different when you're moving to Boston, but like I was able to hang out with everyone else who was interning at funds, which was awesome because then you get to know those students really well too. And, you know, I'm still good friends with a lot of them.
Yeah, for me, I think the investment team at Shellback was 4 people, and I was the 5th for the summer, so I was the only intern. And I was definitely a little freaked out by that at first, just because in your work setting, it wasn't as big of an opportunity to like meet people your own age. But I lived in the Northeastern dorm, so it's very similar to the NYU experience, probably on a little bit of a smaller level. But I actually met a ton of people through that, and yeah, and I think with other interns, it's just at the firm, it's definitely firm specific. So
hi guys, this sort of piggybacks off of Ethan's question. For the internship itself, do you guys remember any particular things you did to prepare for some of the more technical questions in the interview, aside from just some of the accounting stuff? Anything you remember?
I think so for both my sophomore and junior year internships with interviewing, I used the M&I guide. I think it's called the M&I 400. Feels like I tried to get it out of my head after that happened. But yeah, I would say with the buy-side program to really not freak yourself out about the technical questions. Definitely have an idea, and I would say if you're looking at that guide, the basic finance questions, the basic valuation questions, basic accounting I think is perfectly fine. As long as you can answer those questions and kind of get an idea of an understanding of accounting and finance and valuation, I think you're fine.
Yeah. I use the M&I 400 too. I think if you just Google it, it should come up. But like I want to emphasize like the technical aspects of this like they're pretty small. Like the questions that you'll get are pretty much only the most basic ones. From in my case, it was just the accounting section of the guide. So I think like the stock pitch, there was a question about that in the chat. That's probably more important. Knowing what's going on in the markets and like current events are more important still. And then like beyond like in relative importance, by far still the most important thing is going to be the fit-based questions where you're showing that you're passionate about finance, that you're going to, you're excited to learn, and you're going to take as much away from the opportunity. I think that's really sort of the most important stuff. But for the technicals, yeah, like just look at the most very basic questions, the basic section of that.
Good to know. Thanks, guys.
Hey Travis and Lauren, I have another quick question. I know both of you guys are going into investment banking upon graduation. So when you're during the sophomore program, if you're going through like investment banking recruiting for your junior year, is there like flexibility to do so? And could you talk about your experience of like recruiting for buy side as well as investment banking, like interning in buy side and recruiting for investment banking? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. I could talk a little bit about just in general recruiting, kind of thinking about your junior year internship and kind of like the afterpath of like the buy side program. I think something that really distinguishes the buy side program is just the network that you're building simply from joining the program, and that whoever you're working with and the firm you're at, no matter what, they're really focused on just you building your network, you building experience, and kind of connecting with UW alumni. I was really lucky that I was able to finish my junior year recruiting before I started my sophomore year internship. So I don't have as much like color on managing both tasks at once, but throughout my summer at Shellback, a lot of it was open dialogue about like, who do you want to, like, what do you want to learn about? Who do you want to meet? Are you interested in any firms in Boston that you want to talk to? Like, are you interested in trading? Can I connect you with, go shadow this person? So it was a lot of like learning opportunity and giving me ample time to meet with people and kind of learn about different experiences. So I wasn't necessarily networking for a junior internship at that point, but kind of from that experience, Doug and Shellback really promoted just learning, like networking, reaching out to firms in Boston, meeting with their colleagues, and kind of learning about their experiences overall. So I would say that something that's very cool about Shellback is I remember in like one of my final lunches with Doug, he was like at the end, Lauren, we're attached at the hip now. We're staying in touch no matter what, every couple weeks. Like, let's get on the phone and catch up and see where you're at, what you're thinking, and continuing that relationship. So I think that is super important, and that really is part of the networking. I think Travis can probably talk more about kind of networking and interviewing for his junior year internship because he did it.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely gets a little bit busy, but to be fair, I mean, they kind of, I think, have some, and Jamie, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they have some expectation almost that you're probably going to be recruiting during that summer just because they know that it's a sophomore internship program and that, you should be, kind of moving along, like, becoming a junior the next year, right? So they kind of know that you're going to be recruiting. So basically what I did was I took a couple of weeks to just kind of get acclimated with the program, get to know everyone at the firm, make sure that I kind of had a good handle on the work that I had going on with my current internship. And then kind of like went to my boss and was like, hey, I need to start doing some networking. Is it okay if I start taking some time off of like stepping away from the office for 30 minutes, 45 minutes to do these calls or coffee chats? And like the answer was like, of course, yes. Like, why haven't you been doing that already? They really do encourage you to like go out and build your network, and you'll find that the UW alum who are in these different cities are familiar a lot of times with the programs. They know that the students are going to be out there and looking to kind of build out their networks. And so I had a lot of, I think, really good opportunities to get to know other alum in New York. So I thought that was a really cool part of the program.
Yeah, I'm Maxim. One question I had is like, do you guys think you guys had any sort of like characteristics that set you apart from other candidates for this sophomore internship program that like maybe gave you a better chance of receiving an offer?
Yeah, so I guess I can start. So I was really active in the capital management club here on campus, which is sort of like the student-run investment fund here on campus. And I had already like pitched a stock for that. So like during the interviews, I was able to talk about the stock pitch that I'd actually done for the club. And luckily for me, like it had actually gone up a good amount after I'd pitched it, so I was able to talk about that as well. But I think more you know, like you're not really necessarily going to be able to go back in time at this point and like do a stock pitch or whatever for one of these clubs. So I think like what I would do is like really focus on sort of finding ways to like emphasize your sort of like interest and your passion for finance. Like I think that's really important. Like ask good questions. Like make sure that you're prepared from like a current events perspective, right? Like if you're passionate about finance, you should be reading the Wall Street Journal every day. Like I still do, and I'm not prepping for interviews right now, right? And then I think the other thing that like is really important to emphasize is just how excited you are to like be there and to learn, right? Because like ultimately, yeah, like you're going to be able to add value in small ways, and like you're going to take advantage of every opportunity you have to do that. But from a grand like sort of perspective, right? Like the reason they're giving you this internship is not so you come in and like build out a full three statement model with the DCF and comps and like have the best pitch of like the year at the fund, right? Like the reason you come on is to like learn from all of these people. And so they want someone who's going to come in with like sort of that good, like humble, can-do attitude, who's just like really excited to learn. I think that's really important.
Yeah, I would echo everything Travis said and say like I do have involvements within business school organizations, but all else said, I think what distinguished me during the interview was connecting with the interviewer, really trying to show, really having a story that I worked on and really culminated that said, why am I interested in high finance? Why do I want to work at a hedge fund? Why do I want to eventually pursue a career in investment banking? Just kind of my story and really communicating that as well. And just showing your excitement to be there. I think that really, at this point, it's your sophomore year. You don't know everything. You're still learning. You're not supposed to be like a finance modeling whiz. Like you want to go there, you want to learn, you want to have a great experience, and you want to work hard and break into finance in wherever it's New York, Chicago, Boston, LA, wherever you want to go. So just being excited, I think, is in telling your story clearly is like by far the most important thing.
Thank you.
I think we had a couple of questions in the chat too. So how critical are stock pitching skills to the interview process? Like I'd say that's like one of like many potential questions that you could get, and it makes a lot of sense, obviously, given like what these firms do. So I think there's like a little like section on the handout that kind of gives you like a quick overview of what you should include in your stock pitch. So I would probably start with that and do some research, and then if you have any questions, like definitely make an appointment with one of the advisors to go over it. Because you should have one ready to go, but like prepping this other stuff is also important. Lauren, anything to add on that?
No, I think you covered it.
And I think the rest were more like for so I don't know if anyone else has any other questions. If you scroll all the way up to the beginning of the chat, the link should be up there. And I think there's an example resume.
Yeah, I had a quick question. So in the beginning, you guys talked about the fact that a lot of these companies' websites are kind of barren and it's tough to find a lot of information on them. So when getting prepared for your interviews, what did you guys do in order to really ensure that you had the full understanding of what the company was about, beyond that short blurb that is on the application itself?
So I think the best thing that you can do is, if possible, and if there was a previous intern that has worked there that probably went to UW, is reaching out to them. I think that they'll have them, like, you'll get the firsthand story of their experience at the firm. And let's say I was interviewing at Eminence, I would want to call Travis and be like, Travis, and ask him all these questions about his experience, about what he would be doing on the day-to-day basis. And that's probably your best bet at having an understanding of going into the interview. And I can tell you for a fact that Shellback doesn't have a very detailed website at all. So by talking to me or Logan Davis, who is the previous intern, I would say that's super helpful for that experience. And also Whale Wisdom, which is a website that shows the holdings of hedge funds. This is for hedge funds in particular. Kind of understanding the companies that they're holding. And just a kind of a note, if you're interviewing at a company and their biggest holding is Lululemon, maybe don't pitch Lululemon. because then they'll pick your brain about they'll know way more about Lululemon than you probably do. Not to burst your bubble there, but it's important just to understand what the company's buying, what the company's selling. It's not the most updated information, but it's the best you're going to get before working at the firm. So I think those were the two things that were super helpful, was speaking to the interns, and then that kind of the blurb, and then well wisdom.
Yeah, so I think definitely start with whatever is published with posting, and then I'd say like Google the funds. Like if sometimes it's not on their website, but there'll be like other websites that will have information about the fund. Also look up like the major like the people who work there, because a lot of the times they're sort of like individually known as well. Like for example, like Ricky has done like a lot of appearances on CNBC and different. So you can actually go back and like watch some of his old recordings. And then yeah, they do have to report their holdings. So like if the website Lauren recommended isn't looking, like you should be able to Google it. I think it's called I think it's a 7F filing. But I'm not sure about that. But yeah, they do have to disclose them, so you should be able to. I'm sorry, maybe one more thing to add about that is like it's obviously tough knowing that like you can't find a whole lot of info about where you're going to be interviewing. Like frustrating. Normally you would have all that. Keep in mind too that like all of the people who you're competing against also have sort of those same like restrictions that they're kind of operating in. So like if you can't find it online and maybe like the firm hasn't hired previous UW interns before, then like you might be operating in the dark, but like so are all of your peers who are also.
I also would say that with like understanding what the firm is doing and stuff is important, but I think in a lot of my interviews, they weren't asking me verbatim like, what have we recently bought or what do we do? If it's online, they might ask you about it, but I wouldn't freak yourself out about that too much. Just kind of having an understanding about what the firm is up to, if you can, is great, because that could be helpful for questions down the line. And you could say like, hey, I saw that you recently bought this. Can you talk about your reasoning behind it, or whatever it may be? But I wouldn't drive yourself nuts about it.
All right. Good stuff. Travis and Lauren, as we kind of wrap things up here for the evening, would both of you just kind of give a couple last, tips, things to think about, things that are really important that you thought from the experience and process that you could share with our students as we kind of wrap things up this evening? We'll start with Lauren.
Yeah, so I would definitely say take a lot of time to prepare for these interviews, but don't freak yourself out. I think my stock pitch wasn't a consumer company, and I was being asked in my interview for Shellback about a stock pitch for a consumer company. So I ended up just talking about this startup that really interested me, that it wasn't even a consumer company also. It was called Freebird, and they're a travel company. It's like a service-based company that is helping companies rebook flights upon getting canceled or delayed or whatnot for business purposes. And we ended up just having this entire conversation about the travel industry and everything. And that's and I ended up getting the offer. So what I'm saying here is definitely prepare, but also look for ways to connect. Just be excited. Talk about how much you love Wisconsin and the experience you have. And I think when I left, I was like, I don't know if I got these questions right or anything, but I really enjoyed my conversation. And I think that just speaks to how important it is to connect with people, and that, yes, it's important to be technically prepared and kind of know your stuff. But in the end, you're 20 years old, you're looking for an experience, and people want to hire people that they like to talk to and that are eager to learn. So don't freak yourself out. You don't have to walk in and name every member of the Federal Reserve or on the board, but just be excited, and I think it will work out the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah, and then I'd say definitely start or continue following current events. If you haven't been already, like that's really important, I think, throughout the process, just to kind of have an idea of what's generally going on. But then from there, like start prepping for your behaviorals. Think about like what stories you're going to discuss in your interviews, and think about how you're going to emphasize, right? Like sort of, I think like qualities, right, that you want to bring out in your interview. We talked about how important it is to demonstrate that you're really excited about the program and really passionate about finance, that you're kind of have a growth mindset, right? You're like out there to learn as much as you can. And that, while you have some knowledge already, like ultimately what you're trying to do is join and take away as much from the experience as you possibly can. So I think that's probably what's most important.
All right. Well, in the interest of time, we're going to wrap some things up. Thank you again very much to Lauren and Travis for taking the time out of their evening to just help us with some advising tips, some general overview, and some really great answers to the questions that were posited here this evening. That's awesome. We appreciate you and thank you. Just going forward here for kind of some next steps. Remember, advising starts tomorrow, December 8th through the 23rd. Take advantage of those resources for advising. A lot of great information here this evening. This information session is recorded, so we'll make sure that we get this in the place that we can post that. More than likely, it will be on our website. We also took some attendance here, so we'll be able to potentially reach out to give you that as well. I did post a couple times in the chat the resources, the one-page guide, resume and cover letter resources that we have, that the peers, have taken the time out to put together. Take a look at those. Start that preparation. Start thinking about those market concepts. Wall Street Journal, you heard a lot about your story, your why and your wow factor, why that's important. How can you intentionally and concisely and logically convey that? So remember those things. And we hopefully will be seeing a lot of you on paper here soon for applications. I hope that the rest of your evening goes well. Finals are going well. And that as we move forward towards the holiday, that you take care of yourselves. So with that, I will leave it. Please, colleagues, if you have anything to add, please do so. If not, have a good evening. Thank you for joining us, and thanks, Travis and Lauren, again.